Fox 8 Local First starts now.
Shots being fired, and there are people running.
Congressman Steve Scalise, a member of House leadership, was shot and badly wounded.
Another one down. I think it was a total of 5 down.
The field was basically a killing field.
2 of our great Capitol Police folks were injured, saving our lives because we were sitting ducks in that dugout.
An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
Is this America's breaking point when it comes to the political rhetoric that's become so hateful? It's my breaking point.
I want you to know that you have the prayers not only of the entire city behind you, but of an entire nation and, frankly, the entire world.
Good afternoon, I'm Shelley Brown.
And I'm Kim Holden. Congressman Steve Scalise is in critical condition after a gunman shot the Republican leader and 4 others this morning.
Over the next 2 hours, we will bring you extensive team coverage of the shooting incident. Police shot and killed the gunman, James T. Hodgkinson, and are looking into his history now of social media posts filled with anti-Trump sentiments.
We have team coverage from Washington, D.C. and reaction from those who know Scalise. But first, we have new video of the attack that shocked Capitol Hill.
You can see people in this video just ducking for cover. Congressman Scalise was shot in the hip this morning while practicing for tomorrow's annual congressional baseball game. He was rushed into surgery and is now at Washington, D.C.'s MedStar Hospital. Our Rob Masson is live for us this afternoon at the hospital in D.C.
Kim and Shelley, Congressman Scalise came in here about 6 hours ago with that gunshot wound to the hip. He was brought straight into surgery. They operated on him. When he was brought in, they said he was in stable condition. Then about 2 hours ago, MedStar Washington Hospital put out a tweet saying that he had been now listed as critical but stable. Wherever you go in Washington, people are asking, how is the congressman doing? A lot of his friends back in New Orleans wishing him well as well. We spoke with Roger Villery, the state party chair, a couple of hours ago. He said his thoughts and prayers were with the Scalise family right now. Steve Scalise, congressman for the past 9 years in Louisiana, rose to the position of House Majority Whip, a good friend of President Trump. The president today saying that Scalise is a patriot, a friend, and a fighter. And, of course, everyone hoping that that fighter element comes through right now as he recovers from the surgery that he received about 4 hours ago here at MedStar Washington Hospital. Scalise was basically, it appears, a sitting duck out by second base at the baseball field in the Delray community of Alexandria, about 15 miles from where we're standing right now. Witnesses say he actually had to drag himself out toward the outfield to try and get away from the gunman, now identified as 66-year-old James Hodgkinson of Belleville, Illinois. So the surgery is over. Scalise is in recovery here at MedStar Washington Hospital. The latest word is he's in critical but stable condition, and all of official Washington, of course, pulling for him. Congressman described as breaking down in tears today as they thought about what happened to Scalise out on the baseball field as he prepared for the charity congressional baseball game, which is still going to be going on here later this week in Washington. So for now, friends and supporters of Steve Scalise pulling for a recovery after he was shot in the hip on that baseball diamond in Alexandria, about 15 miles from where we're standing. From Washington, Rob Masson, Fox 8 News.
All right, thanks so much, Rob. Lawmakers say they were pinned down by gunfire, unable to get to Scalise, who was in the middle of the field, as Rob mentioned, at second base. Witnesses say despite being shot, the congressman managed to drag himself, distancing himself from the gunman. Congressman and Dr. Brad Wenstrup of Ohio and other lawmakers were eventually able to rush to Scalise's aid.
He laid out there for at least 10 minutes alone in the field, and we couldn't get to him.
It was a blood trail about 10 to 15 yards long from where he was shot to where he crawled into right field.
We were helping a staffer with a leg wound in the dugout, and but wanted to get out to Steve, and finally did. I got out there and we applied pressure for a while. He was coherent.
5 victims in all were injured in today's shooting at the Eugene Simpson Stadium Park in Alexandria. The other victims include Zach Barth, an aide to Texas Representative Roger Williams, Matt Mika, an employee of Tyson Foods, Inc., as well as 2 Capitol Police officers, David Bailey and Crystal Griner. The officers are being hailed heroes who helped stop the gunman. Their injuries are said to be non-life-threatening. Kristen Holmes has more on the cell phone video shot from the scene.
Discussion.
Majority Whip Steve Scalise, one of 5, shot this morning when a gunman opened fire on Republican congressional baseball players in Virginia.
A lot of us ran to the dugout for cover, and it was just pandemonium.
Hitting Scalise in the hip and wounding a congressional staffer, a lobbyist, and members of the Capitol Hill Police, who were there protecting the Majority Whip.
Our lives were saved by the Capitol Hill Police. Had they not been there, I think it would have been a massacre.
In what sources are calling a deliberate attack.
Gentlemen walked up to us and wanted to know whether there were Republicans or Democrats practicing out there. Congressman Duncan said that it was Republicans.
President Trump announcing the shooter was dead and calling for unity in Washington.
We are strongest when we are unified and when we work together for the common good.
Lawmakers echoing his sentiment.
An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
Law enforcement sources identifying the gunman as 66-year-old James Hodgkinson of Belleville, Illinois. His Facebook page filled with anti-Trump sentiments. He was a volunteer for Senator Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign.
I am sickened by this despicable act.
The members were prepping for the annual congressional baseball game scheduled for tomorrow. The congressmen say the game will go on. In Virginia, Kristen Holmes, Fox 8 News.
We're learning more this afternoon about James Hodgkinson's past.
His record out of St. Clair County, Illinois, shows a long list of minor traffic offenses. In 2006, he was charged with misdemeanor battery, but that charge was later dismissed. He owned a home inspection business, but his home inspection license expired in November of 2016 and was not renewed. Now, according to the Washington Post, Hodgkinson lived with his wife in a suburb of St. Louis. It appears he stayed in the Alexandria area for at least the last 6 weeks. Former Alexandria Mayor Bill Ulay says he saw Hodgkinson regularly at the local YMCA, which was right across from the baseball field where he opened fire. Many who knew him say he was passionate, but that he never showed signs of violence before today.
Texas Congressman Joe Barton says James Hodgkinson first fired at Republican Congressman Trent Kelly of Mississippi, who was playing third base but missed, and then shot Scalise, who, as we've mentioned, was playing second. Congressman Brad Wenstrup of Ohio said when Capitol Police first returned fire, it was difficult to know who was the aggressor and who was the friendly fire working to protect the victims.
But he was moving. He was an active shooter, and he moved from one position to another where he had protection and went from behind the dugout to behind the building, and then at the end he came out with a pistol. So he must have run out of some of his ammunition on his rifle and used his pistol, and then the police closed down on him.
Congressman Wenstrup is an officer in the U.S. Army Reserve and a surgeon, and actually helped Congressman Scalise immediately after Capitol Police gave the all clear.
In addition to calling Congressman Scalise a fighter, President Donald Trump also praised his security officers.
Many lives would have been lost if not for the heroic actions of the 2 Capitol Police officers who took down the gunman despite sustaining gunshot wounds during a very, very brutal assault. Melania and I are grateful for their heroism and praying for the swift recovery of all victims.
Now, locally, there is bipartisan support for Whip Scalise as he recovers from the gunfire.
Democratic Mayor Mitch Landrieu calls Scalise a dear friend, and the state GOP chairman and others who served with Scalise in the legislature call him a hard-working politician. Sabrina Wilson has that part of the story.
And Kim, as they pray for Scalise to make a full recovery, they also hope this terrible incident will have a positive effect on the harsh political divisiveness. Mayor Mitch Landrieu canceled his State of the City address set for this morning out of respect for what Whip Scalise is going through, and he urged everyone to pray for Scalise. Landrieu met Scalise when both served in the Louisiana legislature and calls him a close friend. Some others who helped Scalise get into politics or served with him in the legislature are outraged over the callous shooting.
I served with Steve for 10 years in the legislature. He is a dear friend. His wife, Jennifer, and their kids, Maddie and Harrison, share time at Mardi Gras with Cheryl and I and our kids.
And I helped him in his first campaign. He's just a fine, dedicated young man, and it's truly a tragedy that's happened to anyone, and particularly to Steve.
It hurts, you know. They're in our prayers, the prayers for him and his family. He's got them young children, and you just hope that he gets well and everything's going to be fine.
And they all think it's time to tone down the heated political rhetoric that has become the norm.
This is not a partisan issue. I mean, any attack on any elected official, anybody that works for the government, because you're upset with the other side, is an attack on our entire country.
There's nothing wrong with the Shakespearean statement, strive mightily, but eat and drink as friends.
And State GOP Chair Roger Villery says in terms of Louisiana, Scalise reached the highest leadership position in the Congress since Bob Livingston was House Speaker designate. Is there more security needed for members of Congress? Hear what Villery and others have to say coming up on Fox 8 News at 5. Shelley?
All right, Sabrina, thanks. Congressman Scalise first became involved in politics when he was a student at LSU. He served as House Speaker for the Student Government Association. From 1996 until 2008, he was a member of the Louisiana House and Senate and was elected chairman of the Senate Labor and Industrial Relations Committee. He replaced Bobby Jindal in the U.S. House in 2008 and serves as the Majority Whip and is a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Well, as you might imagine, Scalise's colleagues, former co-workers, and many constituents have sent their well wishes to him and his family.
Kimberly Kurth continues our live team coverage now from Metairie.
And Congressman Scalise represents the 1st District in Louisiana, which includes most of southeast Louisiana. And today, Jefferson Parish Sheriff Newell Norman says the support from so many different sectors in this community has been overwhelming. The sheriff also tells us his department got a call from Capitol Police this morning to make sure they were aware of what happened. JPSO then provided security for Scalise's family at their Jefferson home. The sheriff's office also reached out to their federal and state partners as a precautionary measure and out of concern for the Scalise family. But the sheriff says there wasn't a threat here in Louisiana.
Certainly we want to send our prayers to the family, his wife and his children, his extended family, his staff, and so many of his peers that he works with. You know, Steve Scalise, whether you're on his side of politics or not on his side of politics, he's our guy. He's our representative here in Louisiana, and he's worked up his way up through many roles in Congress and is now the Majority Whip, which is something to be incredibly proud of.
And the sheriff also points out what many people have been talking about today, and that is, had Scalise not been there, it's possible that there wouldn't have been security there. And he adds that the situation could have been much worse. So many people are very thankful for Capitol Police tonight and what they did to take the shooter down before anyone else was hurt. For now, reporting live from Metairie, Kimberly Kurth, Fox 8 News.
And as shots were being fired, Capitol Police officers did rush in to stop that attacker.
And 2 of those officers were wounded, but still exchanged gunfire with the attacker. As Natasha Robin reports, many have credited the specially trained officers for saving the lives of many.
From calm to chaos, congressmen described running for their lives when alleged suspect James Hogginson opened fire on them as they practiced for a congressional baseball game.
Was batting. We heard a loud noise, felt like a construction site. Somebody dropped a big piece of metal. And then the next thing I remember is somebody on the field yelling, "Run, he's got a gun." I ran into the dugout like most people on the field.
Witnesses say the gunman, believed to be armed with a rifle, fired over 50 shots. A total of 5 people were shot, including House Majority Whip Steve Scalise.
The only potential weapons they had were baseball bats. And this guy comes out with a rifle and basically picks off, or attempts to pick off, innocent people.
Scalise, who was shot in the hip by the gunman, always travels with his security detail. The Capitol Police quickly moved in and is credited for saving the lives of so many.
They were there appropriately armed, and they returned fire, and this guy is dead. But dead men tell no tales.
We heard a different set of gunfire because you tell the different sounds. That was the Capitol Police, and they only had pistols, I believe. And it was the Capitol Police that saved us all. If it wasn't for the Capitol Police, I would assume that everybody would have been killed this morning.
Some said if not for the Capitol Police officers, this would have been a massacre. Former FBI Special Agent in Charge and Tulane professor Jim Bernazzani calls the Capitol officers silent heroes.
Very low-key, not well known, but they're dedicated and brave.
Bernazzani says members of the FBI work with the Capitol Police, and he says they are specifically trained for incidents like this.
But rest assured, the Capitol Police is extremely professional. They're sharp people, really smart.
2 of the Capitol Police officers were wounded, but despite being shot, they continued to return fire. The gunman died from his injuries.
Suffice it to say that our officers acted, I believe, heroically today, and they're in good condition, and we look for a rapid recovery.
The FBI now takes over the investigation, and since the gunman died, Bernazzani says it will be tough to answer all of their questions. Shelley?
All right, Natasha, thanks. Children even witnessed the gunfire. Texas Representative Joe Barton says his sons were with him at this morning's practice.
We got, some of us were in the dugout, some of us were on the ground. I was behind the dugout. My son Jack got under an SUV, and he was very brave. My other son Brad was in the batting cage, and he also was brave.
And Representative Rodney Davis says the competition between Republicans and Democrats on the field was always good-natured. He said he cannot believe what unfolded today.
And I never thought I'd play a baseball game for charity, go to practice at 6:30 in the morning, and have to dodge bullets.
Former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, who was shot in the head back in 2011, tweeted, "My heart is with my former colleagues, their families and staff, and the U.S. Capitol Police, public servants, and heroes today and every day." Giffords was wounded in an attack during a meet and greet at an Arizona grocery store. 6 people died, and Giffords was among the 13 people who were injured. The gunman in the case was sentenced to life in prison. As a result of the shooting, Giffords suffers from a language disorder and is partially paralyzed.
Tomorrow night's congressional baseball game will go on as scheduled. Representative Joe Barton and Mike Doyle say they will not allow incidents like the one today to change our way of life. Instead, they say they see it as an opportunity for both sides of the aisle to show unity against the violence and division.
You know, it shouldn't take an incident like this to bring us together. I know in times of tragedy we have Americans do that, but Joe and I have been reflecting a lot lately just on how we can still maintain our principles and our legislative agendas, but we could do it in a more civil way. And when the leadership of this country is civil towards one another, maybe the public will start being civil towards one another too. And the news media will be civil towards members of Congress and the public. And we can change the mood in this country so that people don't get filled up with this kind of hatred.
The Congressional Baseball Game for Charity added the Capitol Police Memorial Fund to the list of this year's beneficiaries after this morning's shooting. Be sure to count on Fox 8 to bring you breaking news about Congressman Scalise's condition, any updates and new details about the investigation. In addition to keeping you updated over the airwaves, you can also get alerts any time of day through our free Fox 8 News app, as well as online at fox8live.com.
Just a chaotic morning, just a routine morning that, like they said, they had no idea they'd be going out to a baseball field and end up having to dodge bullets. And thank goodness those Capitol Police officers were there to protect, because Steve Scalise travels without his detail sometimes. He goes out and about when he's here in New Orleans, especially. He's not always with that security detail.
We saw him in our studio just a couple of weeks ago with his kids, and he had 2 guys with him.
And that's great to see,
Yeah.
and good to see that he had that today. But a lot of times they get that false sense of security, and oh, we're just going to run out and do this, run out and do that, and don't have. And you'd think baseball field at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, you wouldn't need that. But
yeah, and the police, they responded within 3 minutes, but a lot can happen in that short period of time.
Absolutely. Well, we have the police dispatch calls that show how quickly everything escalated.
That's right. We're going to take a listen and bring you new reaction from witnesses next on Fox 8 News at 4.
As Representative Scalise recovers from a gunshot wound this evening, we are learning more about the tense moments right after the shooting from dramatic 911 recordings.
Receiving shots being fired, and there are people running, possibly victims involved. 21 Charlie, having got that call in, send it. Okay. Give me down, hands going for the baseball field. 225 along state, I'm going to be on foot. I've still got shots being fired. We got one in custody. We need medics. We got a suspect. Okay, 225, give me your exact location. Right by the baseball field in front of the YMCA, there's also a victim down in the baseball field. We have another one down. I think it was a total of 5 down. Middle of the ballpark with one gunshot wound to the leg. Okay. Does anybody need a chopper? Yeah, that's fine. We will need a medevac.
At least 5 people, including Steve Scalise, went to a hospital. Again, as we mentioned, Scalise is in critical condition tonight. A spokesperson for MedStar Washington Hospital Center says Scalise underwent 1 surgery. However, it is not clear whether he will have to have another one.
And police are still at the scene of the shooting in Alexandria, Virginia. Rachel DePompa has more.
First, let me show you what we can see from where we are. This is as close as we can get at this moment. They are still actively investigating this crime scene at the ballpark here in Alexandria. Down the road, you can see police officers are still gathered. I'm going to take you to some video from earlier today, much closer to the scene. You can see ATF agents, FBI walking around the area. This is where the shooting unfolded. Majority Whip Steve Scalise was on the second base side of the field. The alleged shooter, James T. Hodgkinson, was on the third base side. Scalise was hit in the hip. Witnesses say 50 to 60 shots were fired. 4 people were hit in all. Scalise went into surgery and has been out of surgery now and is said to be recovering and will be okay. A congressman's aide out of Texas was also hit, and 2 Capitol Hill police officers who are being hailed as heroes for engaging with this shooter. They happen to be there because they were protecting Scalise since he was part of the leadership of the House. And they, again, engaged with the shooter, as did the Alexandria Police Department, who was here within 3 minutes of this shooting. The alleged shooter, James T. Hodgkinson, has died. He died in the hospital a short time after this shooting. Police are still here. They're going to be here all evening, trying to figure out exactly why this happened and the motive behind the shooting. For the Raycom News Network, I'm Rachel DePompa.
Well, having someone well-versed in bleeding first aid at the scene could have played a critical role in helping those shooting victims survive. Tulane and UMC trauma surgeon Dr. Rebecca Schroll says seconds count when a patient is bleeding, especially internally.
The reason that this education is so important is that when you have a person that's been injured and is bleeding, minutes make a difference. A person with a really severe injury can bleed to death within minutes, even before EMS arrives.
In a joint project, Tulane and LSU Health Science Center are implementing a Stop the Bleed campaign in the local community to try to train people in techniques that can save lives.
People swimming at a nearby YMCA had to evacuate the pool area after a bullet went through a window. Witnesses tweeted pictures from the Y of those bullet holes you can see there. One user wrote, "Active shooter situation during this morning's trip to the Y, sheltered in place and under lockdown." The Washington Post reports that 30 to 40 people were inside that building at the time of the shooting. Representative Rodney Davis said the shooting may serve as a breaking point when it comes to the harsh and divided political rhetoric in the United States.
Well, it has to change. I mean, this has to be a breaking point. I asked a question earlier, is this America's breaking point when it comes to the political rhetoric that's become so hateful? It's my breaking point. That's why I'm here talking to you today. We've got to end this. We've got to stop it, because I watched my friend and my fellow member, Steve Scalise, lay motionless on the field, wondering if he was going to be okay. That is a picture I will never forget.
And we will have much more on this brutal attack at a baseball field in Alexandria, Virginia, that has left Congressman Steve Scalise hospitalized this evening. We'll be right back. A witness captures video of this morning's shooting that critically injured Congressman and House Majority Whip Steve Scalise. At one point, you can see people ducking for cover. Scalise was shot while practicing for tomorrow's annual congressional baseball game.
And Scalise was rushed into surgery and is now at Washington, D.C.'s MedStar Hospital.
Our Rob Masson is live at that hospital in Washington, D.C.
Shelley and Kimmy went into that surgery about 5 hours ago. When he went in, he was listed as stable. About 3 hours ago, the hospital, MedStar Washington, put out a tweet saying he was now in critical but stable condition. Of course, a lot of concern in the New Orleans area and here in Washington, D.C. after a congressman is shot on a baseball diamond in Alexandria near Washington. Scalise was out there playing second base, from what we are told, and the gunman, now identified as 66-year-old James Hodgkinson of Belleville, Illinois, allegedly opened fire on a group of people. All the congressmen asked, after asking if these were going to be Republican congressmen out here practicing today, and shot Scalise in the hip. Scalise was one of the more vulnerable ones. Other congressmen sought shelter in some of the dugouts, wherever they could find it. Luckily for Scalise, though, he travels with a Capitol Police contingent who are being given tremendous credit this evening for returning fire and for being able to stop the gunman from shooting at Scalise anymore or shooting at any more of the other congressmen who had gathered there for baseball practice for the upcoming congressional baseball game. Wherever we went in the airport this afternoon, people were asking about Scalise's condition, including Amy Rome from HOMA. She is a real estate lobbyist who just met with Scalise last week. She said he is a wonderful person, a leader, and to hear that he had been actually shot out here on a baseball diamond in Washington was just shocking to her. We were with Scalise about 6 months ago when he was reelected to his 5th term in Congress. He was always jovial. He was excited about the upcoming election, about working with President Trump. In fact, President Trump this afternoon decrying this tragedy and saying that Steve Scalise is a friend, a patriot, and a fighter. So the thoughts and prayers of official Washington and most friends and supporters of Steve Scalise are with him this evening as he recovers from surgery from that bullet to the hip suffered on the baseball diamond about 10 hours ago now here in Alexandria. Again, listed as critical but stable condition. Live from MedStar Washington Hospital, Rob Masson, Fox 8 News.
All right, thanks so much, Rob. Police shot and killed the suspected gunman, James Hodgkinson. Investigators say he made several social media posts that were highly critical of President Donald Trump. Hodgkinson's record out of St. Clair County, Illinois, shows a long list of minor traffic offenses. In 2006, he was charged with misdemeanor battery, but that charge was later dismissed. Senator and former presidential candidate Bernie Sanders says Hodgkinson once volunteered for his campaign, and this morning he condemned the act, calling violence of any kind unacceptable.
I have just been informed that the alleged shooter at the Republican baseball practice this morning is someone who apparently volunteered on my presidential campaign. I am sickened by this despicable act.
The FBI is actually holding a news conference right now, so we want to go ahead and take a listen into that.
An additional 2 individuals, a congressman and a Capitol Police officer, attained secondary injuries at the scene and were transported to local hospitals and treated. As for the subject, and this is the only time that I'll be referring to him by his name, this afternoon we released a statement noting that the subject name was James Hodgkinson, 66 years of age, of Belleville, Illinois. He succumbed to his injuries at the hospital, and the DC medical examiner has issued the cause of death as multiple gunshot wounds to the torso. The FBI has issued a seeking information poster identifying the shooter, and it can be found at www.fbi.gov. While the subject is deceased, we continue to actively investigate the shooter's motives, acquaintances, and whereabouts that led to today's incident. We will continue to have presence as we process a scene here in Alexandria, and FBI agents are searching the shooter's home. His residence is Belleville, Illinois. The subject's vehicle was located on scene and has been swept by Alexandria PD and the ATF, and we will be processing with our FBI evidence recovery team as well. Obviously, we are looking to glean what we can from the contents regarding his electrical devices that he owned. Law enforcement has reason to believe that the shooter has been in Alexandria, Virginia area since March of this year. The FBI has issued, again, seeking information poster that is located on our website, asking the public to come forward with information on the shooter. To the local Alexandria community, we believe that the shooter has been living out of his vehicle in the vicinity of East Monroe Street, therefore asking you to report any interactions that you've had with him. Likewise, the subject traveled from his residence in Illinois, and we are asking and speaking with individuals who know him personally or who may have encountered him on his travels. If you have information, please call the FBI 24-hour tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI and select option 1, or visit tips.fbi.gov. So again, FBI's 24-hour tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI and select option 1, or visit tips.fbi.gov. All tips will remain confidential. No amount of information is too small to report. Law enforcement will remain on scene until processing of the scene has been completed. We ask that the local community for your patience and your cooperation as we complete this task. Further updates will be shared via written statements unless law enforcement collectively standing behind me advises otherwise. I'll open it up for a few questions in just a second, but I want to turn it over to Chief Brown from Alexandria PD for a couple comments.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mike Brown, B-R-O-W-N, Chief of the Alexandria Police Department. I just wanted to get back and give a status as to what we're doing in this community to try and reassure the community in terms of the safety and the security of our residents. Right now, we are canvassing the immediate area out here, doing door-to-door with our colleagues from the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department, so that we can reassure people in the community that we believe this incident today is over, although the investigation will continue in this area for a while. We are also working with some of our other departments in the city, for example, with the Department of Community and Health Services, to make services that are generally available for these kinds of situations available to our community over the next couple of days. We care very much about our residents and the people that come to visit us in this city, and we're doing everything we can to reassure them that this is a safe community and that your government and your public safety personnel care deeply about it. That said, you'll see a lot of law enforcement, fire personnel working this area trying to reassure them of such. So I thank you for that, and as a part of the department, we will continue to work with the FBI and as they move forward on their investigation. Thank you very much.
Special Agent Slater, did he have a vendetta against Republicans? I have no comment on that.
Do you know whose shots brought him down?
It was a multiple local law enforcement response, so I do not know at this time.
Was it both the Capitol Police and the Alexandria who responded and shot him?
I'm not going to comment on exactly who it was. It was multiple local
Can you
agencies.
talk about, your release talked about the weapons. Can you give us a little idea of what you're trying to run down on the weapons?
The only comment I'll make about weapons is one handgun and one rifle.
And what are you trying to learn about those?
Where they came from, who bought them, how he acquired them, all the logical investigative leads.
St. Clair County officers interacted with him in March in Illinois. Was it shortly after that that he came here? Because you say he's been here since March.
We believe he has been here since March, so I'm not going to comment on the specifics of that.
On the radar of any law enforcement? Capitol Police officer shot into the original round of gunfire or when the exchange of gunfire.
I'm not exactly sure on that now. Don't have a comment on that.
Is there anything about
Sir?
his location, for people who may have seen him, is there anything that you can say about what he was doing in these couple of months that may help jog people's recollection of where they may have seen him, what he can do?
No, that's what we're really asking the public to help us with, because we're just not sure at this time.
Have you spoken to his wife?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay, so there you hear it, the FBI and the Alexandria, Virginia Police Department basically asking for more help from the public, although the suspect, 66-year-old James Hodgkinson, is dead from multiple gunshot wounds. The FBI is seeking information. They want the public to help them out to figure out exactly what was his motive. They want to talk to acquaintances of him. They want to search his home, his vehicle, and talk to anybody who can kind of lead them in the right direction as to what was his state of mind when he went to this baseball field in Alexandria, Virginia, and opened fire this morning on Republican congressmen. Asked if James Hodgkinson had a vendetta against Republicans, the FBI says they can't answer that at this point. They are still investigating.
All right. Tennessee lawmaker Chuck Fleischman says at first he didn't realize they were under attack.
I walked forward, and then we heard a single gunshot. I heard a pop. We were all trying to get to cover. It was multiple gunshots, and it continued for a long period of time. 2 of our great Capitol Police folks were injured, saving our lives, because we were sitting ducks in that dugout. When I got in the dugout, I realized there was blood all over the place. It was not a good place to be.
And one witness who lived nearby says he helped 3 congressmen at the ball field to safety by bringing them into his apartment building.
I was just on my balcony, which kind of looks over towards the street and over towards the baseball field. We heard the shots. Those shots woke my wife up. We called 911 and reported the active shooter situation. Once we had called that in, we noticed that there were 3 men, running this way away from the shooter, and we were able to get them inside our apartment building, so that way they could, shelter in place, and they were able to call their family and to call their, and then they were trying to call their staff to let them know that they were okay.
The witness says that they were pretty shaken up and that they stayed in the apartment building until things settled down. The congressmen were then able to rejoin their colleagues.
Congressman Scalise represents the 1st District in Louisiana, which includes most of southeastern Louisiana.
Alan Henry joins us now with reaction from his constituents in Jefferson Parish.
Yeah, Steve Scalise has been involved in Louisiana politics for more than 20 years, but he's been a part of the New Orleans community for his entire life. The 51-year-old has made many connections across the state, and when news broke he was shot this morning, one of his constituents described it as a sinking feeling.
You never think that it hits this close to home. I mean, this really makes it just much more impactful to think that it's happening to one of our own.
He was here last week, I think last Friday, just meeting with some people. It's just insane that, especially practicing for a baseball game, it's just unheard of.
Scalise just became the dean of Louisiana's congressional delegation in January after the retirement of former Senator David Vitter. Back to you, Shelley.
All right, Alan Henry, our newest reporter. Thanks so much for that this evening. Count on Fox 8 to bring you breaking news about Congressman Scalise's condition and new details about the investigation. In addition to keeping you updated over the airwaves, you can also get those alerts any time of day through our free Fox 8 News app and online at fox8live.com/Scalise.
And we will be right back.
We'll get back to our team coverage of the shooting of Congressman Steve Scalise in just a moment. We also, though, want to bring you the latest on this afternoon's rain.
Bruce Katz is tracking the showers and has a closer look at your Weather Authority forecast.
Well, today we didn't see quite as much rainfall. In fact, today we saw everything. Check it out this morning. If you were up this morning during Fox 8 Morning Edition at 7 o'clock, look at the sunshine out there. It was a beautiful start to the day, but then you start getting the daytime heating. And then as we hit around 9:30 to 10, clouds really billowed up. And by 10:30 to 11, boy, the showers moved on in. As you can see, we saw these scattered storms moving on through. They do not last that long this time of year. However, they can certainly dump a lot of rain in a short amount of time. And take a look at this as we go now through just beyond 4:30 this afternoon. Really not that bad. We're looking at some blue skies and sunshine high atop the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. So right now on Viper radar, North Shore, you're pretty much dry. One little lone shower north of Bogalusa. South Shore dry. Couple of showers on the river parishes, and then north of Lafayette coming in through the Florida parishes. That's where they're seeing the rainfall. So as we show you, basically in the city itself, we earlier had a couple of showers farther south. As you can see, they just don't last that long. So for right now, we are high and dry. Coming on down to Lafourche and Terrebonne Parish, just a couple of little areas of rain. But again, these little areas with some of the yellows and reds, they can certainly drop a lot of rain in a short amount of time. And then finally, right near Angie, a little storm approaching you, and that's pretty much it, as we do see really no rain at all for St. Tammany Parish at this hour. Let's take a look now at the satellite and the radar composite with an upper low in the Gulf of Mexico, bringing in some rain farther east. But around here, with the sea breeze and your daytime heating, we saw those showers building on in. And for right now, as we continue to get a little later in the day, we're beyond the maximum heating. I think this evening, most of the rain will be dying out in the next hour or two. And then as we focus on the tropics, speaking of wet weather, it's pretty wet now coming in off of Africa, off the Cabo Verde Islands. You can see a pretty strong tropical wave. Pretty unusual this early in the season and this far south to get a tropical system to develop. But nevertheless, Hurricane Center, they do have their eyes on that. And another feature a little bit closer to home, we've been talking about this now for a couple of days. Although there's nothing now to initialize, it looks like by Sunday into Monday, as we get into next week, models all want to develop something near the Yucatan and bring it into the Gulf of Mexico. So, of course, the Fox 8 weather team, if something does develop, we're going to be all over it for you, letting you know what's going on. But for the next couple of days, no need to worry about the tropics. In fact, we're going to see that deep tropical moisture give way to a little drying in the mid-levels. And what that means for you is kind of a more typical afternoon shower pattern. Rain coverage the next few days at about 30 to 40%. Heaviest rains continuing to the east around Florida with the upper low. And then as we get into late Sunday into Monday, here's that feature we're going to be tracking over the Yucatan and into the Gulf of Mexico for the possibility of something developing there. For tonight, showers will be ending. As you can see, overnight, things are looking pretty good. And outside right now with partly cloudy skies, temps, boy, it's warming up. Upper 80s to near 90 with not much rain. Dew points in the low to mid 70s. That's a lot of humid air out there with winds variable at 5 to 10. So for tonight, mild and muggy, all showers in. Coastal showers may redevelop at 75. For tomorrow, sun and clouds, a day like today. Tomorrow's high pushing the 90-degree mark. Very quickly, rain chances coming in 30% over the weekend, so Father's Day weekend looking pretty good. And as we take a look at that, you'll notice the overnight lows in the low to mid 70s. So there you have it. Keep the umbrella nearby. Fox 8 will continue right after this break.
We are now hearing from people who know the man accused of shooting Congressman Steve Scalise and 4 others.
That's right. Friends in Illinois describe James Hodgkinson as happy-go-lucky, but investigators are looking into his social media post. They say he made several social media posts that were highly critical of President Donald Trump.
I just want to let people know that he wasn't evil, that he was, I guess, tired of some of the politics that are going on. Just like in this state, we got politicians collecting a paycheck and doing absolutely nothing for it.
Police shot and killed James Hodgkinson.
Today's ballpark shooting is a stark reminder that law enforcement officers always run towards danger while everyone else seeks shelter.
This morning's events are a sobering reminder of what the men and women of law enforcement all across our country, and yes, today here among the Capitol Police, take on each and every day.
Besides Capitol Police officers, law enforcement from the Alexandria, Virginia Police Force also exchanged fire with the suspect. The Alexandria PD got to the scene 3 minutes after getting the emergency call.
Republicans and Democrats will share a special meal tonight. Representative Mike Doyle says instead of being divided, the clubs will come together.
Tonight we want to be together. I just suggested to Joe that we would like to host the entire Republican team down at the Democratic Club. Probably some of them have never stepped foot in that building.
I've been in it one time.
But we want to have them to dinner. We're going to have both teams together and just have a time to be with each other and reflect upon this day and to share some food and drink and get to know each other a little bit better.
Tomorrow night's congressional baseball game will go on as scheduled.
And we are continuing our team coverage from the nation's capital and here at home of the shooting of Congressman Steve Scalise.
He is in critical condition right now. We'll take you live to Washington, D.C.'s MedStar Hospital. Plus, see how Jefferson Parish deputies were called on to protect Scalise's family.